Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Katherine Kelly, and I am really excited to bring to you this whole idea of Soul 101. Now, this video series is a series that I came up with a while back because people were asking me how to understand the soul. People were asking me to define it, to help them integrate it into their lives, to help them understand how this thing works. And so I went about asking colleagues and clients and friends about, okay, what do you think people need to know about the soul? And so I have this long list of things that I'm going to bring to you to help you understand what the soul is really about. And so this video itself is really going to help you understand what the soul is and what it isn't at a very basic level. And I created this PowerPoint presentation to help really bring it into a very visual perspective so you can walk through this as if I were teaching it to a college class. And the reason I say that is that we have to start somewhere. And I'm going to help you understand really that the soul is something to be experienced more than defined. And I'm going to walk through some different slides here in order to help you understand this. Now, one of the other things that you see on this screen is sage wisdom for the modern soul. Why is it that I've been really using that phrase? And it's because all ancient cultures lived through their souls. All ancient cultures didn't have to define the soul because they were brought up understanding it to begin with. But what has happened in modern day is that we've left it way behind. We have left the soul out of all of our vocabulary, we've left it out of our experience. We don't even talk about it in most churches. And so it's so important for us to understand that this inner ally, this innermost self of ours, has to come back. It has to make a comeback in order for us to get where we're really supposed to be. And I'm going to really explain things about soul evolution. I'm going to explain reincarnation. I'm going to explain soul age. I'm going to explain all kinds of different things throughout this video series. But I want you to understand the soul at the most basic level. And before I go any further, I want to talk a little bit about the history of the soul itself. So, for those of you who are medical professionals, or obviously all of us go to medical professionals, I want to really emphasize the point that way back, hundreds of years ago, when the field of medicine was created, it was actually created with the idea that the soul was present in every aspect of who we are, every organ and every illness. So Hippocrates, the person who is considered to be the father of medicine, and this was like right around 400 AD, 400 BC. Basically, he and all of his friends, Plato, Socrates, Galen, all of the folks at the time that were leading the way to create the field of medicine, believed and stated out loud and directly that the soul was present in every aspect of who we are. And yet it is vanished. It is absolutely nowhere to be seen when it comes to medical training these days. Then we fast forward to basically where psychology was formed. So the field of psychology is far newer. It's about 170 years old, 180 years old, give or take. And one of the founding fathers, Carl Jung, also said that the soul was present in every aspect of who we are, every part of who we are as a psyche, as a soul, as a personality, every behavior, every emotion. And yet again, when I was going through psychological training, it was never mentioned. The soul was never mentioned in any training. So somehow the very substance of how the soul was part of us got left out in physical health and emotional health, but it is time to bring it back for our spiritual health. So this is a big part of why I'm doing this series. So I'm going to walk through these slides and I'm going to help you understand this. I'm going to keep this very casual, even though the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation seems very formal, but I want to give you this information to get you started. So here we go with this. So a formal definition of the soul and the history of the soul is basically that it was considered a substantial entity believed to be that in each person, which has to do with how they live, how they feel, how they think, and any of their willfulness in life. And so there's lots of different bits of history about Middle English soul, the Germanic soul. It went through an evolution until it came to the spelling of the word soul now, S-O-U-L. it was suspected to have meant or been meant originally that it came from the sea, or it came from, or it began or belonged to the sea. Now, I find this beautiful and interesting for lots of reasons, because lots of ancient cultures believed that water was the thing of life, that water was life. I just returned from a trip from Peru. It was my fourth trip there. And it was emphasized with one of the guides that I was working with at Machu Picchu, that water is life. And he emphasized that the Incan culture and the Quechuan culture, the ancient cultures of the Peruvian, basically the history, all believed that water was life. And water was a very important part of life in Machu Picchu, the ancient, and it's one of the wonders of the world, the seven wonders of the world, and how water was woven through that sacred structure. And so I won't go further into that, but it's that whole idea that water has always been seen as life. Water has been the essence of life. So to me, it goes to prove that the soul is a very important part of who we are, and that ancient cultures knew that, but we have to bring that to the modern soul. We have to bring that back into how we see and how we experience the soul, and our essence of who we are in modern and everyday life. So I'm going to go through this a little further. More of the history of the soul. It is considered the non-material essence of a person, including their identity, their personality, their memories. So really everything that has to do with the non-material part of us, the non-body part of us. It is also considered the immaterial aspect of the essence of a living being, and it is the part of us that survives death. And this is something that, again, whether you believe in reincarnation, whether you believe in Christianity, whatever it is that you believe, that it is the part of us that survives physical death. It goes on, it is immortal, it is endless, and it's basically infinite. It does not go away. So, how is it that I define the soul? I keep it very, very simple. That what is the soul? Well, it is the essence of who we are. It is the hub of who we are. It is the basically the collective of all of our experiences. But it is also the very essence of who we are as an individual. It is a unique part of us, and there are 8.6 billion people on this planet, and yet each one of those 8.6 billion people has a unique essence of who they are. You will not ever find the same essence of a person anywhere around the planet. You might have similarities, you will not have an exact replica of that person. So the essence of who we are is how I explain it. It is our core identity beyond what we've been conditioned to think or do or be. It is basically that essence, that energetic part of us that will always be unique to us. It is also, and this is something that I used, a description I used recently, and a lot of my colleagues really appreciated this, but it's the central processing unit of everything that we are. And when you think about a computer, the central processing unit, we don't see in a computer that central processing unit, but we know that there's something within the computer that makes it tick. We know that it is the smartest part of the computer. It's the central part of what makes everything else within that computer function. So the soul is the very similar thing. It is that essence, it's that core processing unit within us that helps us understand how we think, how we feel, how we behave. It is the hub of all of that. It's the core processing unit. It's that central part of this body. It's what makes us tick. So if you think about the essence of who we are as a central processing unit, that will help you understand it even more. Something else I want to point out is that the soul is more of an experience than something we can fully define. Now, there are lots of historians who talk about the soul. There's lots of spiritual writers and authors who talk about the soul. And oftentimes they talk about it from an intellectualized process. They talk about it from an intellectualized perspective. And you can tell that they don't they're talking about it and around it, but they're not really showing how you experience it. And so even me, until I can help someone experience their soul and experience and the energetic aspect of them, that essence of who they are, a lot of times they keep it very intellectualized. But if you really start to think about how you know your soul exists, you can use the example of how you know you love something. When you love something, again, it's very hard to define. It's very hard to understand why you know you love something, because it's an experience. Love is an experience. very much like soul is an experience. So once you have a soulful experience, it's almost like a light goes on. It's like there's something that energizes within you to help you understand what your soul is, and then you can build from there. And through these videos and through more and more of the information that I'm going to provide to you over these series and different kinds of series, but this series, the Soul 101 series, I'm going to help you understand and also experience your soul through some meditations, through some exercises, so that you can really grasp what this is through the Soul 101 series. What else is the soul? It is the hub of our survival instinct. So, what is it that makes us struggle to live? What is it that makes us want to live? We don't even think about a situation. We have an instinct that kicks us into gear to make us want to live. Why? Because our soul wants to survive. Why? Because our soul wants to learn and grow and evolve. And so, if we didn't have this survival instinct, there would be nothing about us. That essence of who we are would cease to exist. But there's always that part of us who wants to survive and get through something, regardless of the terrible situation that we may be facing. It also is that which makes us want to live and survive in general. So if you think about this overall idea of, wow, there is this central processing unit that is trying to rev this computer, it's trying to keep us going, it's trying to help define what it is that's coming next. That's part of this soul. It's that instinct that goes beyond that intellectual understanding. So there's something there that is trying to push us forward. Also, it is the root of the voice within. So I talk a lot about the gut reaction. I talk about the gut instinct. Just today, I was talking to a client and trying to teach her how to listen to her soul by helping her understand her gut reactions. So it is that source, and I called this soul the voice of our gut instinct or our gut reaction, because when we have a gut reaction, we don't think about it. We just have that gut reaction, and it pushes us into some sort of behavior or reactive mode so that we can do something that is for our better health or better safety, whatever that might be. So it is the source or the voice of who we are at the deepest level within. Okay, another part is that the unique part of us that influences our thoughts, behaviors, and decisions. So again, that central processing unit, there's an influence behind it. Now, in future videos, I'm going to talk a lot about how past life experiences or traumas of this life influence who we are and how they become energetic imprints to our soul. That's a whole other video. But I want you to understand that our experiences lace us, our experiences season us and our soul at such a deep level that it becomes part of who we are. And so that unique part of us is influenced by those thoughts, behaviors, and decisions that have already been influenced by our experiences of our soul previous in life. So we could have been 5 years old and had some experience that is still influencing our behaviors, thoughts, and actions today. So it's that energetic part of us. So bear with me because I'm going to keep talking about what this all means for you. I also talk about the energetic signature of who we are. So we all have an energetic signature. And when you think about the energetic signature of who we are, it comes through our voice, it comes through our energy, it comes through our actions. Every single person on this planet has a different kind of energy. It has a different kind of energetic signature. When I am doing a soul realignment session, or when I am about to offer an Akashic record reading, or I'm doing some past life work, or if I'm working with someone that I need to know a little information about in order to go into the reading, the Akashic records, and do that reading, I tell them I like to have that voice imprint. I like to hear their voice because their voice is what I call the energetic signature of that person's soul. So there's a resonant energy. There's an energy that each and every one of us has that is like no other on this planet. And that is the energetic signature of who we are. So how do we recognize someone's voice? Well, there's an energetic resonance that we have that it imprints in us to recognize, oh, that's mom's voice, or that's dad's voice, or that's my dog's bark. We somehow know through an energetic understanding that there's an energy beyond what can be explained through material objects, but there's something that resonates with each one of us that is a signature of each and every one of the souls on this planet. So I'm going to explain that more in future sessions. that I'm going to do for the Soul 101 series, but it's the energetic signature of who we are. So again, until you ignite, until you experience that energy of your own soul, it's hard to understand how all of this stuff fits together, but I'm going to change that for you. Okay, the next thing is it is the energetic storage unit of all of our experiences. Now, I mentioned just a few minutes ago that idea of past lives and reincarnation. So whether it is any energetic storage unit from this life moving forward or any previous lives moving forward, that soul is the energetic storage unit. It holds all of our memories, it holds all of our experiences, it holds all of those reactions that we have, which is why sometimes we have anxious reactions to something that we've never really had a bad experience with in this lifetime, but oftentimes it can be linked to previous lifetimes. On the other hand, we could have had a traumatic experience younger in life that we still react to, and it's the energetic storage within that essence of who we are that creates our reaction subsequently from any point forward. So that's the part of this that is very hard to understand for people in some ways, is that, wow, there's some aspect of us that remembers energetically what has happened to us and gets reactive. Well, it's the soul part of us. It's not only the mind part of it, it's not the body memory part of it, it's the collective of all of that, and that exists within the soul. So another metaphor that I use for people, or analogy, is the whole idea of cloud storage. So where in the heck do our files go when we store them in the cloud? It's a very similar kind of concept that there's not a material place in the world that all of these files, all of these photos, all of these documents are going. It's basically an energetic storage. And so you can think of your soul as a cloud storage, but one that is within you. So there's an energy behind it. There's everything gets stored there. And the way that is released is through our reactivity, through our behaviors, through our emotions. And so that's another way to look at how the soul exists within us. So it's an energetic cloud storage in some ways as well. So the other thing I talk about is that the soul is a spiritual term. It is not necessarily a religious one. And, I grew up Catholic. I don't practice Catholicism anymore. But the thing is, I never heard the word soul. When I ask people who belong to other religions, most of them say, I've never heard the word soul used within the religious terminology. So you have to think about the soul as a spiritual term. It is an essence, it is not a thing. And one of the other things that I talk about when I'm talking about my soul health model is the idea that spirituality is something we create for ourselves, whereas religion is something that is created for us. And religion is something we follow, religion is something outside of us, whereas spirituality is deeply personal and deeply something that we create for ourselves. So it is a spiritual term. Soul is not a religious term. And so I want to clear that up because I'm not a clergy. I'm not someone who needs to have some sort of degree in order to talk about the soul. Everybody on this planet has the right to talk about their soul because every person on this planet has a soul. What the soul is not. So I want to kind of go through the whole idea of what the soul is not as well. So it is not our psyche. Now, early in psychological education, way back when the field was formed, psyche and soul were seen as the same thing. They were sometimes interchanged. Those words are often interchanged. In fact, when you look in a Webster's dictionary, a lot of times you'll see both words there. However, I want to clear this up. I want to help you understand that the psyche is not the soul and the soul is not the psyche. The psyche is the entirety of all of our cognitive kinds of functions. It is part of our perceptions. It is part of the psyche is part of our perceptions. It is part of our thought process, our cognitions, our problem solving. But that is not necessarily the entirety of the soul, because the soul, like I said before, influences body, mind, and spirit. So it influences our thoughts, behaviors, reactions, everything. It is not only about our psyche. It is not only about our psychological aspect. So I try to help people understand that the psyche is part of the soul, but the soul is not part of the psyche. So it's a bigger element, or the soul encompasses every aspect of who we are, whereas the psyche is really the cognitive components. And I hope that helps you clear that up because a lot of people use those words interchangeably. It is not at all the same. Now, I'm also going to talk in future videos about the soul health model that I created about 18 or 19 years ago. And that model has 10 different branches of the human condition on it. And one of them is the psychological branch. But the entirety of the tree helps you understand the soul and how it functions within every aspect of human life. And so, again, future session, future video, but I want to help you understand the psyche is not the same thing as the soul. The soul is not the same thing as the psyche. The psyche is part of the soul. It is not everything. So that is one way to start differentiating what is different between the psyche and the soul. Another part of what the soul is not is that it is not our spirit. A lot of times people will interchange soul and spirit, and I'm going to help you understand later in this video the difference between soul, spirit, God, universe, source. And so hold that thought, and I'm going to help you get there. But it is not, the soul is not our spirit. It's something different. The soul is very, very unique to us, whereas spirit has a lot of likeness with other kinds of souls and beings on this planet. I'm going to help you understand that in a few minutes. The soul is not our intuition. So a lot of people think that the soul is our intuition. It is not our intuition. Our soul is part of our psyche, and it happens to be, in many ways, a spiritual aspect because we can intuit things about the world, but it has to happen through our cognition. And so intuition is known to come from the head, whereas the soul is basically every aspect of who we are. It's that energetic imprint in every cell of our body that basically helps influence every aspect. So intuition is a function of the soul and our personality. It is not the soul. So this is another way to start differentiating. And again, when I talk about the spirit and intuition a little bit later, I think you're going to understand this even more. The soul is not a physical aspect. It's not an organ. It's not a thing, even though Hippocrates, the father of medicine, thousands of years ago, basically said it is present in every organ and present in every illness, but it is not the organ and it is not the illness. So that it's nothing tangible. The soul is not tangible. It is an energetic aspect of who we are. It is not something that is tangible. So I hope that helps as well. It is not measurable. There is no way you can measure the soul. Now, quite a while ago, a scientist decided he wanted to try to measure the soul. And the way he did this was he measured the weight of bodies when they were dying, and he wanted to prove that basically there was some physical element that left the body, and to measure that through weight. And basically what happened is, I think he once or twice, I don't even know if it was the second time, he basically measured that there was a certain amount of loss of weight for a body as they died. Now they were never able to replicate that. So he tried to prove that yes, there's a physical aspect that leaves the body. It is not possible to measure the soul. It is not possible at all to do a personality test on the soul. You cannot give the soul a personality test and help you understand the differences between soul to soul. It cannot happen because you cannot measure it. So the soul is not measurable, but it is knowable. And when I say knowable, it is once a person starts to understand who they are and who that essence is within them, they realize, wow, I am different than everybody. There's nothing measurable about it. There's nothing I can do to scientifically prove that this is something that exists, which is in fact what makes the soul challenging and bringing it back to modern life, because science really wants to prove that it exists. And in some ways it has, because there used to be researchers out there and research departments throughout the country that helped measure. It wasn't really measuring the soul, but it was basically doing research on past life regression and reincarnation. And there's still some that exist, but the soul itself is not measurable. You can't put it on a scale. You can't hook it up to some sort of machine. You can't do a blood test. It is not measurable. And that's why I say it is only knowable. It is not an intellectualized concept. Now, like I said, there were lots of authors over the hundreds of years that intellectualized the soul. And it is an experiential process. It's an experiential aspect of who we are. And until a person gets in tune with that energetic essence of who they are, they disconnect from themselves in many ways. So this is why I'm starting this process with this Soul 101 series to help people understand this differently. And if I have it my way, I'm going to help you experience your soul along the way. It is also not destructible. It is an indestructible aspect. So it's one of those things where we cannot destruct the soul. I hope I read that correctly. Just keep in mind, it is not destructible. We can't kill a soul. We can't end a soul. We can wound a soul, but we cannot eliminate it. It is an energy. And as we know through science, this is the part through science we do know, you cannot eliminate energy. It just transmutes into something else. So it is not an indestructible part of who we are. Or excuse me, it is, we cannot destruct our soul. Let me put it that way. It is not unbreakable or pure. What I mean by that is we can fracture our soul. We can have trauma that fractures us, but we cannot break it down. We can't eliminate it. We can't destroy it. But we can go through life having a fractured or a fragile soul because of the wounds that we've experienced. Now, this is something, again, that I'm going to talk more and more about with Soul 101, is how to understand if you have a fractured soul, what that means. This is the whole part of soul healing, is to get you to understand that there are aspects of us that we can heal. We can get to a point where we can help you fortify that soul that has been wounded and get you into a better place. But it is not unbreakable, but it is impossible to get rid of. Again, going back to the fact that it is not a religious term, out of all the 8.6 billion souls on this planet, all of us have a soul and no one functions without one. So I've had lots of people say that there are certain people on this planet that don't have a soul. All of us have a soul, but basically we can have very broken ones. And, I've heard many people talk about this in terms of politicians, in terms of heinous leaders, and, and really it's everybody has a soul, but there are, like I mentioned in the previous slide, we can have a broken soul or a fragmented soul that really causes us to believe that we don't have any heart, or they don't have any heart or soul. So I will explain this more in future videos as well. The soul is also not something that only humans have. So basically animals, plants, stones, anything that has life essence to it has a soul. And many people in ancient cultures believed that the soul is present in everything, including the earth. So in other words, the soul is part of earth. The soul is part of the leaves that are around us, the food that we eat, all those kinds of things. So anything that has an energetic essence has a soul. And it's hard to believe if a leaf can't talk or a leaf can't get up and walk away, but really that soul is that energetic essence of who we are, and that is the bottom line of this. Okay, so this is the last part of what I'm going to talk about in this particular episode, I guess should say, of the Soul 101. So how does the soul compare to spirit, God, universe, and source? So the soul is the unique essence of who an individual is. So the soul is unique to the individual. Spirit, however, is a unique soul plus the influence of if a person believes in a God, if a person believes in universe, and if a person believes in source. So spirit is the collective energy. And in many cases, when I'm teaching people about spirit guides, I have them understand that that includes the essence of their spirit guides. So the spirit is really the energetic collective of anything that we have had access to or been influenced by. And that is why we can, through our spirit, bring in information. We can bring in information through our intuition. So spirit is very different than the soul, but those who are connected with their souls tend to be very connected with spirit as well. So it's one of those things where that's why I think people pair them, but it is a very, very different thing. The soul is unique to that particular individual, whereas spirit is a collective energetic storage of information. And that's why some are able to tap into it and some are not. Now, because I do readings, I can tap into spirit very quickly. I have messages download left and right. I have things happen that are basically energizing me at any given time. And it's because I'm very in tune with that, but not everybody is. So let me help you understand the difference between soul, God, and spirit. So the soul is the individual person, the spirit is the collective, but God is basically a construct. It is the idea of a creator or ruler of the universe or of all moral authority. So it's one of those things where people who believe in a God believe in a supreme being or a higher being that oversees all function, all behavior of all of the souls. Now, this is a religiously based concept. And this is one of those things that I point out that, most religions believe in a superhuman being or a spirit that is worshiped as having power over nature and human fortunes and deities. So let me help you think about this, though. There are about 3,000 different religions on this earth. And now there might be more than that, subsets of those, but there are about 3,000 religions on that earth. So you have to kind of think about the fact that the number of gods that are represented within each one of those 3,000-ish religions, there must be something bigger that created all of them in order for those gods to exist. And so a God is basically a tangible idea of something or a tangible concept of something that helps link information together so that people can understand how it is that they can lead their own lives differently. So it's a construct. Gods are just basically a construct. And I'm not trying to minimize the effect because it's really important for people to believe in something so that they can help guide their lives. But you have to really look at the logic behind it, that there are more than one gods on this planet that are worshipped, which means there's something larger than those gods that created them. So soul, spirit, God are very different. Now, universe is all existing matter and space considered as a whole, basically as the cosmos. Now, so the universe is collectively all of the gods, all of the universes, all of the aspects of what we believe from a spiritual perspective, from a religious perspective. But universe is different than God, even though some people use it interchangeably. And then the last thing I want to really share here is the idea of source. So source energy, and I'm going to try to increase this. Oops, I'm not going to be able to get back to this. Source energy is basically everything that exists and where it came from. So when I talk to people about the difference between soul, spirit, God, universe, and source, source is one of those things, again, we cannot really fully define it. We cannot be clear with how it is that we put our finger on it, because source is the biggest thing that exists, and it is the most mysterious and intangible thing that we can get to. However, source energy is where all of us have come from. And so I want to throw out one last thing with this Soul 101 video. Someone asked me, this was a producer of a movie, basically that was documenting the soul and how people believe about the soul. And he asked me, he was in town, he's promoting his movie, and he asked me to have dinner. We had dinner. And first he asked me, what is the soul? I described it very similarly to what I described to you on this video. The soul is the essence of who we are. One of the things he asked me next was, how do I define source? And I helped him understand, and I slowly kind of thought through this, how I wanted to convey this to him. But basically, if in fact we are created in the essence of God, source, whatever we might want to consider that highest level of being, I told him, then we are the energetic extension of source. And that is really the best thing that we can really consider as far as where did we come from? How do we exist? How are we a reflection of source? But we are the energetic extension of source. And so our goal is basically to learn as much as we can about our souls, learn as much as we can about the Soul 101, get the basics, expand it out so that we can really understand who we are on a greater level and where we are trying to get to. So, this whole idea of falling from grace, Adam and Eve falling from grace, how do we get back to source? Well, we have to, in that religion, live a much more Christ-like existence. Well, it's the same thing. Is like, how do we align with ourselves? How do we get to that point where we align with ourselves at that highest level? We eliminate any harmfulness. We eliminate any fear. We basically get out of that human condition in order to realign with ourselves which then realigns us with source. And so when I go back and talk about Soul 101, this is what is so important for us, is to get to understand there are basics we have to know in order to reintegrate the information and live in our modern life. So that's what this whole Soul 101 is about. This is where I want to, and I'm going to clip this off. This is where I want to congratulate you with sitting through this, and also join me in this process of helping you understand the next steps of understanding the soul. I hope this was helpful for you. Much more to come. I hope you have a wonderful day. Light and love to all of you. And as I bring that sage wisdom back to the modern soul, I would love to hear your comments. Have a good day. Bye-bye.